everyone in between. Welcome to Salt City Hoops. Once again, I am Mark Pereira here as your host of this edition of the Salt City Hoops, a podcast about the Utah Jazz. Find us everywhere on your podcast apps or YouTube or wherever you're watching or listening. You're already here, so you're already doing the watching and the listening. But if you are interested that, hey, if I'm listening to this, I would like to perhaps watch Mark and his guest's face over on YouTube, go ahead and do that. Guys, we do this for fun. Like, I just love spouting my takes about the Utah Jazz and getting my thoughts out on the canvas, because I need to spare my dear wife my constant thoughts about them, and my children are not quite old enough to take on that responsibility of listening to their dad and parroting back my terrible thoughts. And so it's not like the subscriptions or anything or something that we're trying to pay any bills with or anything like that. But man, making the number go up makes my heart sing, and also helps the scary, unknowable algorithms of the internet. The more you drop the likes and subscribes, the more that other Jazz fans like yourself or other NBA fans, because we do talk a lot of non-Jazz stuff around here from time to time, the more that those fans will find us and we have a community to talk about. Because the number one thing I like to have here is the community we're growing. I think that there is a narrow space that is currently being unoccupied in Jazz and NBA fanland of really well-researched information combined with some levity and some irreverence and humor and humility with everything, and just trying to have some fun being a fan without diving into hot take culture or just intentionally trying to piss people off. So my whole thing is just trying to have some fun with this whole thing. I know a lot of everyone else at Salt City Hoops feels the same way. Like, we're just trying to have some fun around here. So the more that we grow the community and that sort of thing, I want to encourage everyone to talk to each other, have some fun with each other. I will never stop posting on the internet, as the phrase goes, and you'll find me over on Blue Sky, where there's just a ton of NBA folks chatting without the noise of a lot of the rest of the world that I find. It's all ball all the time. I love following football. I love following basketball, and NASCAR. A lot of you know I'm a big NASCAR guy. I got Dale Earnhardt here right behind me, and so I mentioned that to say, hey, you're listening to a comment I say here, or a take I had, or a question I had, or something I got wrong, or something you agree with, or something you want to add to it. Just shoot me a note, man. Let's talk about this and let's post about it. Capital P. Let's post about it. So if you just find us over anywhere. Obviously, we have a presence on Twitter as well, so go ahead and look at the Salt City Hoops account on Twitter to kind of reach out over there. You'll have some member of the team respond to some, say like, hey, Mark said something really stupid, I want to talk about it. We're over there as well. We're not going to go back in time to caveman land of Facebook, I don't think, but think about starting up Instagram and TikTok presences, especially now that we have YouTube videos out. Kind of get some shorts out there for people to kind of react and talk about. The whole point of this whole thing, and the reason I have this long intro, is to say, I want to talk to you guys. I like doing these solo podcasts, again, is to get my thoughts on the canvas, because they're in my brain, they need to be out, and I like preparing for a podcast with what are these thoughts, organize them, but also add a little bit of irreverence, a little bit of improvisation, if you will. Many of you know I'm a saxophone player, so as much as we like to read the notes on the page, sometimes some little improvisation is not so bad. That's really what we're doing in this immediate second. The main thing is I'm not sitting here, and nobody here is trying to pay any bills or anything. We want to talk to you guys. So spread the word, subscribe, like that whole thing. We'll be here all season. And I'm keeping up a good schedule so far. We're hoping to do every Wednesday night is when we're recording these. Unless various family or other obligations get in the way, but we're going to hit up once a week because this is a fun little season the Jazz have going for us this year. I think this is a lot different than the past 2 years. I think there's a way more intrigue about what's happening this season, that even as we get into the dog days of February, March, we'll have some things to talk about, I'm sure. I think one, Ace Bailey is going to give us plenty to talk about on his own. As we go through the whole season, whereas how is the rookie season of Taylor Hendricks shaping up? I don't know if we care. Cody Williams, not really a guy we get excited about, and as well as Isaiah Collier and Kyle Filipowski played last year. There's only so much Isaiah Collier can he shoot threes content you can really talk about. But I think Ace Bailey, I mean, everything is just open as far as what is he doing in a given week and what to take away. So he alone, I think this could be the Ace Bailey podcast come March if we're not careful. So thank you guys for tuning in to me, Mark Pereira, for Salt City Hoops. And let's get into the stuff we want to talk about today. So what are we going to talk about today? We have 3 games over the past week. We'll talk about the what happened there, just a little bit, but just kind of pointing out the different lineups that were used, some new lineups, including a little bit of a special Ace Bailey performance and a second start, some notable Ace Bailey commentary as far as from other players and coaches and things that I think were notable. A little bit of Isaiah Collier talking, just so in general about what has happened over the past 3 games and where to look forward. And then, as I mentioned in my preface here, I like to think that this narrow window of levity and humor, maybe you don't find me funny at all, that's fine, but just levity of not taking ourselves too seriously, but combining that with hey, I've actually looked into this sort of thing, and maybe we should, there are some things that are reasonable to talk about. There's been a lot of internet fighting about that the Jazz are currently 4-7 and are not taking enough, and we need to trade Lauri Markkanen versus no you don't. To mimic the old Onion meme. Well, I'm going to be on the no you don't side of that, right? Is that I think some more careful analysis into the whole idea of what is the Jazz plan, what is the plan of the front office. I think it can be boiled down to in actually looking at the lottery odds themselves and what the Jazz are valuing over X lottery odds versus Y lottery odds. So I want to talk about that right now. So going into the season, and we've talked about this before, it's been written about by many people, this has been beaten to death, but I think in order to have a full conversation, we have to restate this conversation once again. At the beginning of the season, Austin Ainge, the head honcho of basketball operations for the Jazz, because it's not Danny Ainge anymore for all intents and purposes, he says this team will not be tanking. And what is clarified after that is the Jazz are not going to be faking injuries or really stretching out the severity of injuries or throwing out intentionally awkward lineups. I mean, Will Hardy's going to coach his ass off, but if you take clubs out of the bag for him, there's only so much he can do. The Jazz are going to not do these intentionally anti-competitive things. And last year the goal was to get Cooper Flagg, and the idea being of last year saying, hey, it's worth completely imploding our season from minute 1 for that type of generational talent. Not a very good draft. I'm sorry, not that it was for a regular very good draft is what I mean to say, but rather there is a immediate franchise-altering superstar where multiple All-NBAs are a median outcome for his type of talent. as much as we love to look at AJ DeBensa coming out for BYU and how good that like next year's draft is, it looks like a regular good draft. Like oh wow, some great talent there at the top. We'd love to be at the top. DeBensa looks terrific. So did a lot of other players who ended up being drafted number 1 overall and just became merely very good, right? Flag, Wembanyama, these are LeBron James, completely different types of talent. Even Zion Williamson, right? Like that is, his body's kind of failed him, but like I don't think the book is completely written off on Zion. But like Zion kind of operates even between the two, I think, where was not considered the type of talent that Wemby or LeBron or even Cooper Flag are considered. And not to get on a Zion tangent, but I think he was falling into like that Anthony Davis tier of like, okay, this guy's a sure thing, but there's some things that need to be worked out. And there still are a lot of things to be worked out with Zion Williamson. So this upcoming draft versus compared to last year is the Jazz aren't trying to maximize getting the number 1 pick. Or even a top 3 pick. If you're looking at the draft before the start of last season, you would have said obviously Cooper Flag and then some combination of Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey as your 2 and your 3. Ace Bailey probably number 2. And there were draft people saying before the season that the only player in college basketball who had a remote chance of taking over Cooper Flag was if Ace Bailey had a ridiculous season for Rutgers and Cooper Flag maybe didn't live up to the hype. That obviously didn't happen, but Ace Bailey had a good enough season to be worthy of a top 3 pick, and some wonderful college performances and perhaps some pre-draft snookery allows Philly and Charlotte to feel more comfortable taking VJ Edgecombe and Con Knipple over Ace Bailey. Which, by the way, those decisions look incredibly good right now. But I think you look around the NBA, though, I think Ace Bailey still got a ceiling that surpasses either of those two players based on size and athleticism and baseline skill talent. I think it's clear that Edgecombe and Knipple are more NBA ready. So the Jazz look at last season and they say, we have to get a top 3 pick. Have to. This team is really, like, it's time for us to super tank because the Zachary Ricochet draft was not worth super tanking for. So we're going to build around the edges here a little bit. I'm not going to go back into the very first Lowry season, post-Rudy, post-down, and how we ended up with Taylor Hendricks over Wembanyama. I think that's been covered in way too many words. But unlike the Ricochet draft, you're looking at the Flag draft saying, okay, this is worth tanking for, right? Instead of learning more things about Walker Kessler or Keontae George, we're throwing all of that learning, development, whatever, we're just throwing it in the toilet. Lowry marketing, you're going to play as few games as we can get away with. And by the way, we didn't get away with it. We got fined. Because even if we can't get Cooper Flag, the odds at the top of the draft are flat. Remember, like there's no difference in the odds of getting the number 1 pick if you have the first or the third worst record. But the Jazz intention in this season is to say, okay, if we don't get the first, the second, or third pick, the furthest we can fall is 5th. And 5th would really suck. But there's a 47% chance of picking 5th. If you have the worst record in the NBA, the most likely outcome is picking 5th. Did you guys know that? I don't think that's understood enough. That you could be the worst team in the NBA, and the most likely outcome is that you pick 5th. .47% chance of that happening. Of course, the worst case scenario happened for the Jazz. It's 47%. It's actually 47.9%. So it's closer to 48%. And that rightfully infuriates Ryan Smith and the rest of the team. I think it's not just, of course, oh, the Jazz are picking fifth, but also you looked at the top three teams. Dallas, of course, after trading Luka Doncic, Nico Harrison just got fired. Maybe we'll have time to talk about that a little bit. The Spurs, who just had the Rookie of the Year, and they also have Victor Wembanyama. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And the Philadelphia 76ers, who, if you look at what the Sixers did at the end of last season, was the most egregious, insulting tank job that has happened since the process. I don't think the Sixers do not get enough hate for the tank job that they did last year. So the Jazz approached last year thinking this is a draft worth just whatever happens, has to be fifth or higher. And we are going to maximize getting a top 3-4 pick, right? Again, the three worst teams have the same odds 1 through 4. There's no difference between the minus 3 teams. It only affects if teams at beyond those 3 teams bump you. Where do you pick after the lottery odds sort out? For instance, if you're the third worst team, there's a 7% chance that you pick 7th, right? And that's just, you couldn't have that happen. So they end up finishing with the worst record in the NBA. I think they would have been satisfied with either of the 3 worst records. So then you go into this season. You've completely ruined the roster for last year. And you go into this year saying, we owe a top 8 protected pick to Oklahoma City. It will be organizational malpractice for us to lose that pick to Oklahoma City. So we got to be bad this year. But we also do not see it necessary to be so desperate to be the worst or second worst team in the NBA. Is there a world where we can just can we be a regular bad team? Can we actually tell our coaches and players, we're going to try as long as you're healthy, we'll try. Knowing that the talent level on the team just can't get you more than 30 wins. And they accurately looked at this roster and said, well, first thing we got to do, if we want to be a bad team, we have to get rid of select levels of competence. And I think there's a ceiling to what Colin Sexton can do for like a high level team. Like he's a 6th, 7th man, whatever. But he is a slight winning player. And also his backups at the time, Keontae George, before his improvement this year, right? We're talking preseason. His backups being Keontae George, not a point guard, played terribly in his first 2 seasons. Played very bad his first 2 seasons, especially as like a lead point guard kind of player. And Isaiah Collier, who has some interesting skills, but has some interesting flaws as well. And those are 2 guys you can look at and say, every minute that is helmed at the point guard spot by Keontae George and Isaiah Collier, and perhaps rookie Walt Clayton, no matter how amazing Walt Clayton could be, he's going to be a net negative player. So all 3 of those point guards, no matter what combination we put out there, those are going to drag this team down. They are going to be tank commanders if we get rid of Colin Sexton. If we have 48 minutes of point guard play with those 3 guys, always a net negative. Unless Keontae George has a magical improvement, which, oops, he kind of is. We'll talk about that. So that's the first step. The other step is, all right, John Collins, we're not going to hold out. You're a good player. We're not going to hold out and get a good asset in return for you. We're just going to take the best available trade, which right now is we found our way to get John Collins involved in getting Norm Powell over to Miami and getting John Collins over to the Clippers. And we're going to create a big fat trade exception. And for all of John Collins' flaws, he's a slight winning basketball player. He's gone. He's out. And the interesting thing about Jordan Clarkson is absolutely a negative basketball player at this point in his career. But like we can't have him on the floor. We need the younger, worse players playing instead, right? So you lose Sexton and Clarkson in the backcourt, you lose Collins in the front court, and in acquiring Nurkic, you and Kevin Love, you're saying like, look, Walker Kessler's great, but the shit behind Walker Kessler is not good. Like Nurkic still has some skills, but he's 10, 12, whatever years he is into his career, he misses a lot of games himself, and we got nothing behind him except Kevin Love, who is done. We might even waive Kevin Love, and then it's Oscar Tshiebwe time. Playing Taylor Hendricks at the 5. Can't do that. Playing Kyle Filipowski at the 5. We'll have the worst defense in the league. So they could go. So saying all that to say they're going to go into this season saying a team led by Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler and bad ball handling, this team can't win more than 30 games. Can't win more than 30 games. Even with Will Hardy. Because there's just too much youth and too many bad players. They accurately thought that. And so then you look around the NBA. This is where now we're going to start the heavy. I'm going to start using some numbers again. They looked around the NBA and said, if we ostensibly try, we're probably going to be better than Washington and Brooklyn. But even Washington is kind of cobbling some stuff together. Like, maybe Washington can have a little bit of a surprise with some second and third year leaps from some guys. Sarr and Keyshawn George look great. They're still going to be net negative this year, but they look great. But okay, we're going to be better than Washington and Brooklyn for sure. Looking at a team like Indiana, who is currently 1-9, we blew the doors off of them. We scored 152 points against them last night. There was a lot of chatter preseason, like Indiana's going to be bad. And they lost Miles Turner, obviously, to Milwaukee, and Tyrese Halliburton's obviously out for the year. But they had enough stuff around them and an amazing coach that they could be anywhere between like 25 and 43 wins, right? Like Indiana has that sort of like good team depth kind of thing. And they've had 8 quadrillion injuries that they're signing Mac McClung off the street to play 12 minutes. That's insane. And so now they're 1-9. The New Orleans Pelicans. They're currently 2-8, or I think they just lost tonight. They're 2-9. Zion Williamson hurt again. What a surprise. They don't own their first round draft pick. So they're going to be running through the tape. So the Jazz are looking at this being like, even if we try. Oh, let me mention Charlotte in there too. But Charlotte also, they're like Utah East. Charlotte has some established players who are net positive players. They have Colin Sexton now. Speaking of whom. They also have a lot of youth that they're trying to develop. And they're pretty confident that they don't have to full on tank to be bad. So they're kind of Utah East. So Utah looks into the saying, Washington, Brooklyn, we're going to be better than them. Even if we try tanking, we probably can't out-tank Washington and Brooklyn. We're probably going to be worse than Indiana and New Orleans. And tied around Charlotte. And even if Utah's better than all 5 of those teams, they'll finish with the 6th worst record. The 6th worst record in the NBA has a 96.2% chance of finish 8th or higher in the lottery. So they would have a 3.8% chance of losing the pick. That would suck. But that's also only slightly higher percentage than the Dallas Mavericks winning the goddamn lottery. Very unlikely to happen. Do your own. It's an easy percentage to understand. 3.8%. It doesn't happen a lot. With the 6th worst record, you also, and this is the most important thing I want you to take away from all this dumb lottery talk. And then I'm not going to talk about it for weeks. That's a lie. I'll probably talk about it next week. If you have the 6th worst record in the NBA, you have a 27.6% chance of a top 3 pick. More than 1 in 4. More than 1 out of every 4 times, you're still going to get a top 3 pick with the 6th worst record. If you have the 5th worst record, you have a 31.6% chance of getting a top 3 pick. And a 99.4% chance of not losing your pick to Oklahoma City. 0.6% chance we lose a pick. If you have the 5th worst record, that would be a very Utah Jazz luck. But that's not going to happen. And just to give you the numbers, just so you have them, like if the Jazz incorrectly assessed this and they said, oh, we ended up finishing with the 7th worst record. Ooh, that's getting close to the top 8. 7th worst, that's pretty risky. You have an 85.8% chance of keeping the pick. Sketchy. I don't love that 14.2% chance. But it's 85.8% chance that you're going to keep the pick. On the flip side, you have a 23.4% chance of picking in the top 3. Now, recall everything I said about having one of the 3 worst records. If you have one of the 3 worst records, you only have a 40.1% chance of a top 3 pick. Compared to, if you're the 6th worst, a 27.6% chance. So you're only losing 13 percentage points. Roughly a 15%, roughly a 50% decrease or increase, depending on which way you're thinking about it. 13 percentage points difference between being the 3rd worst team and the 6th worst team of a top 3 pick. That's not very much. That's just not much at all. So the Jazz are going into the season saying, okay, not going to be worse than Washington and Brooklyn. We're probably going to have a surprise bad team of Charlotte, maybe Sacramento. And if we're trying until February, March, we probably can't be worse than 5th or 6th. And if we end up 7th because we have a kind of an okay season and a team like New Orleans has a season from hell, or Phoenix has a winning record right now, by the way. They started really poorly. You're having a poor season if you're losing to Utah right now. And so I thought they would have a terrible season. I thought New Orleans would fight and improve throughout the season. And I think Zion Williamson is the chances that he would have a healthy-ish season, play 60 games. Oh, okay. That sounded like a 38-win team to me. The inverse is happening. It seems like Phoenix is actually a credible play-in team at the moment and really gelling. Jalen Green being out for another 4 to 6 weeks is really disappointing after he had a very promising first game for them. Hope he comes back soon because it seems like that awkward fit actually looks like it'll be quite seamless. So the point that I'm trying to make is the Jazz accurately looked at this season and said, there is no way that us trying is worth more than 30 wins. And 30 wins, looking at the incentives for, okay, Phoenix and New Orleans don't have their pick, and Sacramento and Dallas will try whatever they can to make the lottery, to make the play-in. And Indiana, they don't have Halliburton, but they're feisty and they're well coached. Charlotte is basically us on the other side, so we can probably out-tank Charlotte if we need to. If we're trying this season, we can't finish worse than 6th or 7th. And if the 7th worst record in the NBA has a 23.4% chance of a top 3 pick, and the 6th worst record has a 27.6% chance of a top 3 pick, compared to a 40% chance for a bottom 3 team, that difference of 13 to 15 percentage points just ain't worth it. And this is where the retort is, what isn't worth it, Mark? And that is the credible roster that you're putting out there. to help with the development of your players. I sit somewhere in the middle between minutes are overrated and, well, in order to assess players, you got to see them playing in real environments. I think if you're throwing a joke roster out there, it doesn't help minutes development. I think it's just bad all around. I also think it's credible that if you have some good NBA players, or even just average usable ones, putting a player on a development curve, or perhaps they don't deserve the minutes they're getting, but putting them in a context around competence allows you to assess them more fairly. That, okay, maybe they didn't deserve the minutes, or okay, just because they're getting minutes doesn't mean they'll improve. But I do think it helps your assessment of those players. And I do think it helps them improve if they're playing around competence. So you put Ace Bailey out there with the starting lineup, and okay, maybe he hasn't deserved it over Svi Mikhailiuk based on what he's done in preseason and practice. But you're getting a more fair assessment of where Ace Bailey is at and how he's going to improve throughout the year if he's playing alongside Walker Kessler and Lauri Markkanen than if he's playing alongside Kyle Filipowski and Taylor Hendricks. There's going to be a lot of mistakes made by all 5 players on the court that it's like, well, if a mistake happens, whose fault was it? And sometimes it's hard to kind of tally up like, okay, this was your mistake, this is your mistake. Well, Ace improved in this area, but because of the other 4 players screwed up, like the play broke and we didn't get to see him finish. Like, as opposed to, hey, Ace is playing with competence, and if he can't keep up with competence, or if he's consistently failing in certain areas that a competent player would do, we can assess that. We can improve, like set up his coaching plan accordingly. So I sit somewhere in the between. Like, I don't want to sit there and just be like, oh, minutes don't matter for development. I think they're slightly overrated, but I think they really matter if you're putting young players in a position where a team trying to win depends on them not sucking. And that pressure. And saying, like, these are the things, these are the attributes we drafted you for. Please focus on them and improve upon your weaknesses as well. I think that stuff matters. I also think the flip side of what would it take for Utah to tank is so aggressive. You would have had to trade Lauri Markkanen in the offseason, because I don't think you could go through this season playing him 30 to 40 games again. There's so many locker room reasons you just can't do that shit to a guy like Lauri Markkanen again. So what you do is you trade him. At the time, if you're trying to be as bad as possible immediately, right out of the gate again, you have to trade him in the offseason for 40 cents on the dollar. I don't think that's good asset management. Very similar to what Dallas has to deal with Anthony Davis right now. Given all their team construct issues right now, they just fired Nico Harrison. Kyrie Irving's not coming back. Cooper Flagg doesn't look very good, partially because he's playing out of position, partially because he's not playing very well. Little interesting note there. Anthony Davis is hurt with a calf injury. Okay, the new general manager has to come in and say, what do we do with Anthony Davis? You could trade him for 40 cents on the dollar right now to someone who's like, sure, I'll cobble together some bad salary and take on Anthony Davis. Or you can try to get Anthony Davis back from his calf injury, get him to play at like an all-NBA level for a couple weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and convince a contender to pony up the price a little bit. Now you're trading him for 80 cents on the dollar. In order to get an effective trade package for Lauri Markkanen, we would have to boost his value by getting him back to be playing at the almost all NBA level that he was at. Or even just like amazing. Like McCall Bridges tier of player where every contender can look around and say like, that guy's going to push us over the edge. In order to get Lauri Markkanen to play well, again, you have to play him. And he has to play well, and if he's playing well, you're winning games. So if you're trying to do full tank, you're trading him in the offseason for 40 cents on the dollar, and I think that's poor asset management. I think that's a bad idea. For, again, the 13% chance difference. 28% chance of a top 3 pick versus 40% chance of a top 3 pick. that 13% chance is not worth, I mean, we're going to talk about a number of things cumulatively, but that 13% chance, is that worth 3 first round picks? Because right now in the offseason, Lauri Markkanen was worth maybe 1 first round pick and a decent young player, like a Jaden Ivey and a first round pick kind of thing. It's not very enticing. Or you can build up his value the whole year. And first of all, I advocate keeping him regardless. But if you keep him the whole year and you convince another team like, hey, 3 to 4 first round picks, this is what's winning you a championship this year or next year. Pony up. Is that, like, you could get additional first round picks if you actually keep him and play him. I think it's not worth that small difference of being the 3rd worst team or the 6th worst team. Other factors, I mentioned the development curve too. Like, I think you're getting accurate looks at. You're not getting this Keontae George season that we're seeing right now without quality around him. He's learned so much playing with Lowry. He's learned so much playing with Walker. And by the way, these are all preseason assessments right now. So that's why I haven't even mentioned Walker Kessler's injury. We'll get to that. So you're not getting this improvement out of Key if he's playing with nonsense out there. I mean, you see a small improvement, sure, but I think by game 5, you're going back to old bad habits Key. If he's not feeling like he can get these high, super great assists that he's getting. It's not just counting numbers. He's making great passes out there to players who are finishing plays. Think Cody Williams is nailing those catch and shoot threes? He sure as shit wouldn't. I'd like him to. And I think this is the first season in Keontae George's career where the team is telling him, we need you to perform so we can win games. I haven't given this part much thought either. But as I said at the top, we're improvising. But Dan has mentioned this a couple times, and I think it's an interesting thought. And I've also seen some folks on Blue Sky also mention that this is a credible, like, why do we care about this so much? Consider a ridiculous outcome. Like, and what I mean by ridiculous is Ace Bailey is a top 2 candidate for Rookie of the Year, and he's actually challenging Cooper Flagg for Rookie of the Year. This is hypothetical. This isn't happening. Lauri Markkanen's back to full form. Keontae George takes a massive super leap, and Walker Kessler is an all-star. And we get immediate playable improvements from the rest of the roster as far as, like, Taylor Hendricks comes back and he's like an all-defense kind of guy. Kyle Filipowski is absolutely just blowing the door. He's a 6th man of the year candidate. Like, just completely ridiculous down the board what could happen. And it's a 41-win team. 38 win, 43 win. Just, they've completely come out of nowhere. Overnight sensation, Detroit Pistons style, where a whole bunch of shit got figured out all at once. Is it really all that bad to give up the 12th pick? I think it is. I think it. I said I haven't thought about this too much, but I think if you end up with a crazy, this will never happen in a million years outcome for the Jazz this year, where they won 43 games, yeah, maybe losing the 13th, 14th, 15th pick isn't the end of the world. And I think it's just my conclusion. It wouldn't be the end of the world, but it wouldn't be a good outcome either, considering that puts you on a treadmill of mediocrity path that I'm a little sketchy about. So I think the Jazz accurately looked at the season and said, there's just no way we're going to be that good if we try. Let's lose some of the winning players in Sexton and Collins, and let's just try a little bit. And we don't care about being the worst team. We care about being the 5th or 6th worst team in the NBA, and it won't be that hard for us to be that bad with who we're giving the keys to. Some interesting developments since then, both positive and negative. Walker Kessler's out for the year. We've talked about it last week. Massively winning player for Utah. Not only because of his contributions on the court, but because his replacement options are bad. I really like Nurkic as like the perfect tanking team center because he is definitely always in the right spots and helping everyone else around him kind of be in the right places, and he makes great passes. He had that wonderful no-look pass across the court to Filipowski last night. Like, he gets guys in the right spot, but he's atrocious defensively, and he can't make shots around the rim. If I recall, it's like been an issue of his for years. Now I actually kind of want to quickly look up Nurkic rim shooting stats. Always have a cleaning the glass tab open. Yeah, for a big, I love seeing this. So for a big man, his entire career, which is over 11 years now, he has never, his use of Nurkic at the shooting at the rim is always, his highest one is 63%. It's never above the bottom quartile of big men in the NBA. The dude cannot finish at the rim. It's incredible. And now he's shooting threes. So, okay. We'll see how this goes. So, losing Walker Kessler is a massive sink to your win total already. He's worth not only him, but his replacement options. Also, Kevin Love is done. And also not a center. And Taylor Hendricks looks awful at center. Filipowski will look awful at center. Oscar Tshiebwe is on a two-way. Like, it's all going to be... Mo Bamba is also not on the roster. Stop asking us to sign Mo Bamba. We should not sign Mo Bamba. And if we do, we're in for a bad time. So what we lose Walker Kessler, it's going to be a massive sink to the win total because the replacement options are so bad. Oof. That's real dampening on things. And I care more about the development curve of everyone else learning around Walker Kessler than what Walker Kessler is actually doing. Lauri Markkanen back to form, but not quite apex Lauri Markkanen. Okay. We'll see, monitor that situation. He can shoot a little better from areas around the court, but he had his first 50-point game, and he's looked terrific in some games. He's also looked pedestrian. He hasn't looked quite the FU athlete that he looked 3 years ago, but he is getting a lot of dunks. But a lot of this kind of a lot of setup dunks for him instead of, like, he hasn't really dunked over many players this year. I think he has one good poster dunk this year. Whereas, remember his All-Star year, we had the Rudy Gobert dunk. We had the, what was it, dunk against the Blazers, and I'm forgetting who it was over. But he's had some good ones in that first year. He hasn't really had those this year. Keontae George, big improvement. Does that offset the Walker Kessler injury? Perhaps. I think if you have Walker Kessler the whole year and Keontae continuing on this like most improved player train, like that might be a 32-33 win team. But without Kessler, like Keontae George loses part of his improvement. Also, I think those two offset. So now you're back down to it being a 25 win team. A 25-30 win team. And the rest of the second-year players, they look fine, but not amazing. Sensabaugh can't get on the floor. Ace Bailey looks fine. Love the 20-point. I've completely gone on for way too long about this topic, but so hopefully I'm not completely losing you. But I'm just having fun talking about it. Ace Bailey had a great game, but like he's not going to be a winning player this year. So the Jazz, where are we going from here? What is the Jazz plan? The Jazz sit at 4-7. Everyone's freaking out about 4-7. Oh, that's too many wins. Extrapolated over a 82 game season, a 4-7 team is going to win 29 games. 29. That's nothing. You have to add some anchors onto that for two things. One, Walker Kessler is not here, right? So 2 of the Jazz wins have come without Walker Kessler, but 2 of them did. So Walker Kessler is going to affect the Jazz are not going to be better than 4-7 winning pace the rest of the year. They're going to be a lot worse than 4-7. And then you add the other natural anchor of, okay, well, that's what their winning percentage is now against, frankly, a bunch of soft teams, a little bit of road heavy schedule, but against some not very good teams, and they're maximum trying. This entire conversation about, the Jazz aren't tanking, you better believe come March, we're going to be sitting some guys down. When they're out of playoff contention, even prideful players and even good culture players who want to run through the tape or anything, they look at March and they think, this season didn't work out. We're not making the play-in. It's time to start taking care of our bodies and not playing that random March game against Oklahoma City where we're going to get our asses kicked by 40 points anyways. So how about we let Cody Williams have some burn? Let's get Elijah Harkless out there having some fun. Even good players, even good prideful players, take a break around that time. Conversely, I think the Pelicans, they don't have their pick. I think they're going to be trying as hard as they can. I mean, even if they're out of playing contention, we saw Zion Williamson playing minutes last year for a hopeless Pelican squad. I think they'll do it again. So the Jazz will shut it down in March, if not even a little slightly earlier. So I'm not worried about those things. So you have those natural weights on, okay, what is a 29-win team? That 29-win team becomes, I looked this up earlier. So over the past 15 years, the sixth worst record in the NBA, on average, has been 27.97 wins. That's factoring in winning percentage in shortened seasons too, like the COVID 2 years, really. So factoring in all those, the winning percentage of the sixth worst record of the past 15 years is a 28-win team. That's what gets you sixth worst. Sometimes it's a little higher, sometimes it's a little lower. And today, it looks like with the incentives around the NBA, Pelicans, Suns, Kings, Mavericks, etc., I think that could be a little bit higher. So the Jazz right now are on a 29-win pace. You lose Kessler, they're probably going to be playing a lot worse than 4-7 the rest of the way. You don't think they're going to finish with fewer than 28 wins? They're going to win 26 games. 27, 28, 24, 22. It's going to be around these bad numbers. They're not suddenly going to be a 34-win team when we're losing our pick. Not going to happen. A lot of this will depend on the teams around Utah. So over the past 15 years, 28 wins gets you the sixth worst record. Since the revised lottery odds, it's been 27.37. So around 27 wins. And they're on a 29-win pace right now. 29.8. All right, so they're on a 30-win pace. Perhaps I'm rounding down to make my story sound better. But 29.8 is what they're on pace for right now. And I just think the natural flow of things without Kessler and how the season's going to go, this is a 27-win team. This is the sixth worst team in the NBA. Maybe fourth worst, maybe eighth worst. And if they're close to eighth worst, they're going to tank like hell in March to get out of that eighth worst spot. And if they can't get out of that eighth worst spot in the NBA, they would still have a 60.8% chance of keeping their pick and still a 19% chance of a top 3 pick. Not as bad as you thought. Okay, that was way too long talking about lottery odds and everything, but let me try to give one quick conclusion here for a soundbite or something like that. The Jazz went into the season knowing that even if they tried their damnedest, they wouldn't be better than a 25 to 30 win team. That is going to be somewhere between the 4th and 7th worst record in the NBA. They were really confident in that because they did not feel like taking bad returns for Lauri Markkanen and introducing rancid vibes into the locker room and getting no quality assessment of the young players was worth the additional 13% lottery odds of moving from 6th to the third worst team because they don't like, unlike a flag or Wembanyama lottery, this isn't a singular transformational lottery on its face. It's a lottery that you want to be a part of. You certainly want to be a bad team in this what looks to be a good draft, but there's not a whole lot of draft incentive to be like rancidly bad. So the Jazz said, let's just be regular bad. Guess what the Jazz are right now? Regular bad. And we are learning so much about players that are having great seasons. We love what Keontae George is doing. It's not just about like whether these players are going to be Jazz men for forever, but like having Keontae George show that like there's some real stuff happening here. All of a sudden, the options for other teams are now looking at Keontae George, thinking, all right, like every team has pro scouts. They don't just have draft scouts and international scouts. You also have pro scouts and advanced scouts who look around the NBA saying like, hey, I'm paying attention to what players like Keontae George are doing. You want your players to be playing well for a whole lot of reasons other than winning basketball games. In the past week, we've seen some interesting developments on some of these young guys too. So Taylor Hendricks has been out for a little bit. In the 3 games that's happened since I've talked to you, got blown the doors off on the road in Minnesota on their lime green court for the NBA Cup. Lost by 40 some odd points. Everyone looked terrible. The team gave up 45 first quarter points and did not show up. Keontae George actually looked okay. But Anthony Edwards torched him. Like Keontae was asked to guard Ant for quite a bit and just couldn't hold up. And the defense wasn't there and they were missing shots. And but without a good defense, the Jazz are going to have to try to win track meets this year. And they don't really have a lot of fast personnel. Sure, a little bit this entire season, they've asked Keontae to kind of move the ball up as much as possible, but teams have started to figure out like, hey, we can pressure this guy in the backcourt, and Keontae he doesn't necessarily turn it over in the backcourt, but he's very good at being patient, but that patience can hinder him if he's actually just trying to get across the half court line, and he's actually turned it over after he's gotten past the half court line with like that pressure continues. And related to that, Isaiah Collier finally got healthy. But as a lot of NBA teams do, but especially Will Hardy, they don't like to like throw a guy right back into the rotation in the middle of a road trip if he hasn't played with the team yet, or especially an extended absence. And that was true for a couple games. And then Collier was surprised in that a blowout loss against the Wolves. They started him alongside Keontae George. And I thought that George and Collier did not quite understand and work together as part of a starting unit. I think there was some guard confusion there on some things, especially defensively. And like the team hasn't practiced very much and they haven't been home yet. So I thought it was interesting that not only did like Collier play after getting a couple DNP coaches decisions, but they also started him. The whole team was terrible, and Collier, he comes back and 10 points, 3 assists. He had 4 turnovers as in a start. Whole team was bad. So he starts for 1 game. And then we come back home and we give Ace Bailey his first ever start. Collier goes back to the bench, and Collier has looked very good off the bench in a couple games. Against the Pacers, he had 10 points and 11 assists. 14 points and 11 assists and 6 rebounds as well. And Collier he shoots out of a cannon. I love watching him play. I think the starting, not starting thing, I think was interesting to give Ace Bailey the start over Collier. But Will Hardy did mention in that first Timberwolves game, like, hey, Keontae's been struggling with some backcourt pressure a little bit. Let's get Collier in there as just like a second ball handler to help manage some of that pressure. And yes, that worked to an extent, but I think also you can just coach Keontae to just be like, move the ball, right? Or coach the entire 5-man offense to say like, hey, if we're facing backcourt pressure from a Jaden McDaniels type or something like that who is causing Keontae problems, like we got to approach this a little differently. Like we have to bring a big up, set a screen, whatever you need to do, which can work. Anyways, and then having Collier out there, I've been surprised as to how much negativity there's been about Isaiah Collier. I wonder how much of it is couched in just like people being disappointed that he's probably not going to be like a surprise all-star. Oh, we got this guy in the second or late first round, and he has just stunned us, and he's wowed us, and he's going to be what a gem of a find. I think he's just he caps out as a very good point guard, like that's worth having around. I think his flaws are also as such that you can build over time, but he comes par baked with some absolute NBA speed and passing ability. That stuff takes years, if ever, to develop in the NBA. Like very athletic guys and very fast guys don't know how to actually apply their speed in an NBA context. Collier absolutely knows how to apply speed in an NBA context. He has been blowing by guys these past 3 games, including in that Wolves blowout. He's learning what to do with his speed once he blows by guys. I think that, and that's his passing vision is really helping there. And I think that whole finishing at the rim thing is going to be a lot more important than his 3-point shooting. And so far, he's been okay. He's been shooting pretty well at the rim. If I recall, his free throws have actually been fine too, which is a big, big deal for him. Yeah, better than they have been. Just a handful of free throws though, so we'll see. We'll monitor his free throws. 3-point shooting's been fine, admittedly on wide open shots. I think Isaiah Collier has some really, really good NBA juice here. I mean, those 11 assists don't come out of nowhere. I think he's got real passing ability, and I think he caps out as a second, third point guard on an NBA team. For a good NBA team. I think that's a fine outcome for a late first round pick. I mean, I would have loved it if he's a third point guard option, but I think, hey, he's part of our playoff 8-9 man rotation as our 16-minute point guard. I think that's a totally fine outcome. A lot of teams can't find a second ball handler off the bench. If they do, they have some sort of other flaw. And defensively, I think he's got some dog in him that's going to make up for his lack of size. Decent wingspan for his height. So I've liked what we've seen out of Collier, and I'm rooting for him. And I think in general, I think Jazz fans are weirdly low on him. At least the circles that I'm seeing. The ideas of like, oh, he can't shoot, can't defend, and turns the ball over too much. I think all of those things are workable development skills. He will reduce his turnovers. I think he's a more credible defender than he's being painted as. At least as he's in his second year in the NBA, as he's going to learn. Dude just turned 21. Just turned 21. He was a team low minus 36 in the block. Everyone was low. Like minus 28 for Lowry, minus 27 for Svi. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. Big story. We'll conclude with this. Ace Bailey, man. There's going to be a lot of Ace Bailey content over the. You're going to see all of it. He's absolutely worth being excited about. So he started 2 games in a row now. His first 2 NBA starts. His first NBA start was great. 10 points, 7 rebounds, 3 steals, 2 assists. He's just filling up little bits on the bobs on the box score. Doesn't make his threes, but he's 4 of 6 from 2, including like a couple interesting little 2-pointers, like jumpers. I mean, and just I said it at the top. Seeing him play alongside Key and Lowry and Svi, it just looks so natural. And we could actually assess, like, what is this guy doing? Not just in a support role, like, okay, he's Jaden McDaniel's support role. No. They're going to run stuff for Ace, but alongside other talent. What is he going to do when he sees, like, Lowry open in the corner for something after an action that has him in the paint? What is he doing in the context of competent basketball? And I thought that first game was incredible. Just like, yes, this is a starting version of a player. He missed all his threes. Who cares? He's going to make them. And the next game he did. Now, the Pacers, really, really a big struggle, but you have to look at the tape to see, like, his points were not just Pacers bad, fast break stuff. I think it was Ace Bailey taking control of some things. Dude was 4 of 8 from 3 in 26 minutes. He had 17 points at halftime. 4 rebounds, including 3 offensive rebounds, including a sick offensive rebound to end the first half. He's an offensive rebounder, guys. I think, let me look at his offensive rebound rate real quick. Well, Hardy's mentioned it in a few press conferences as well. Yeah, he has a 10% offensive rebound rate, which is the 99th percentile for wings. So he's getting a ton of offensive rebounds, and they're not just like volleyball rebounds where he's just like tapping it to himself. I think this guy is a legit rebounder. He's gonna be a 10. He might average 10 a game at some point in his career. Like, that's a preposterous offensive rebound rate, especially for a guy who shoots threes, right? Or he's asked to be standing on the perimeter in a position to shoot threes. Watch Ace Bailey on offense when he doesn't have the ball. That dude is not just standing around. He's constantly moving and trying to force the defense to manipulate where he wants them to go. And I think this is a very small thing. No, I think it's a big thing. Not only watch Ace Bailey without the ball on offense, but watch Ace Bailey when he's not guarding the ball on defense. And look how hard he is trying when it comes to things like communication and navigating switches off the ball. So a very difficult thing about NBA defense is your positioning on the court when you're not guarding the ball and all the off-ball actions that are happening around you. And communicating with your fellow wing or big defenders or your perimeter defenders, wherever you are, communicating with your fellow defenders. Hey, this off-ball screen just happened. Are we switching this off-ball screen? Are you following this cutter all the way to the corner? If this cutter goes in that direction, where am I supposed to go? Am I following him all the way wherever he's going? Or do I hand him off to another defender and peel switch out to something else? He does it really well. He makes a lot of communication mistakes, and he's not perfect. But he's doing these small things that takes like a full year to 3 years for NBA defenders for it to be second nature. And watch him off the ball, offensively, defensively. He's always just doing these little things that tell you that he's a smart basketball player. Cool stuff from Ace. So he had 20 points in the second start. He looked terrific. 4 of 8 from 3. Like, not crazy shooting. 4 of 8 from 3. Okay. 3 of 5 from 2. Okay. Like, that's not crazy. That's a good game. 1 turnover. Loved what we've seen on Ace. And we get another chance at home against the Atlanta Hawks tomorrow. Last time we welcomed Quinn Snyder back to the building against the Hawks, Trae Young hit that half-court buzzer beater game winner 3. And that wasn't like a Trae Young deep logo 3. That was like a legit half-court heave 3 to win the game. So perhaps we get a revenge against the Hawks tomorrow, tonight, Thursday, whenever you guys are listening to this. So, a lot of chat up top about what the Jazz plan is and why they don't need to trade Lowry Markkanen for peanuts to effectuate getting a good draft pick. The flattened lottery odds are in Utah's favor and every other bad team's favor. Just being regular bad is good enough, so long as there isn't a Cooper Flag or a Victor Wembanyama at the top of the lottery. If you're just regular bad, you have good enough odds. So we talked a lot about that, and that's what the Jazz plan is. They're going to be regular bad. And they are regular bad. They're not winning too many games. Relax. They're 4-7, guys. They're not 4-0 or 7-0. They're 4-7. They'll win 28 games. We'll be fine. A lot of enthusiasm for Isaiah Collier making his return. He got one random start in a blowout, but has looked very good off the bench as a backup point guard. And Ace Bailey is a star. He gets his first 2 starts, and I don't think it's a coincidence that his first 2 starts are by far and away his 2 very best games as a pro in his young career. He looks so natural out there playing with other really, really good players. So we'll see how we go from here. Catch you next week. My name is Mark Pereira. This has been Salt City Hoops. Catch you soon. Bye.